Good evening, everyone. I'm Shalini Kemker. I'm the founder and CEO of E2E. I'd like to thank you all for joining me and my team for our virtual reception. I'm sorry we're not having dinner with Simon tonight, but hopefully you'll be able to interact with him shortly. So this is a virtual reception with my friend, the exceptional Simon Woodroffe OBE, who needs very little introduction, who's the founder, owner, and the creative force behind all things Yo. So he's been kind enough to speak for us on numerous occasions, and I'm always excited to hear him. I always learn something new, and his energy is infectious. I'd also like to thank our serviced office partner, IWG UK PLC. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute, but Richard Morris, who's the Chief Executive of IWG UK, he's going to kindly say a few words about our collaboration after I've just given my little bit of intro right now. So, quickly in terms of the format of this evening, I'm going to formally introduce Richard in a second and then ask him to say a few words. I'll then go on to do a short introduction of Simon Woodroffe, and then we'll go into an interactive Q&A. So I'd like to make this quite interactive. Hopefully many of you have been on before, but for those of you who are joining us for the first time, what we'd suggest you do is that you raise your hand. So you'll see, if you can see on the bottom of the Zoom, there's a chat function. If you raise your hand, and then I will try and go through the questions as quickly as possible. So once you've raised your hand, I'll say your name, and please introduce yourself and ask your question, and Simon or Richard will answer. So we'll do that. It'll be about a 30-minute Q&A. We're aiming to finish around 7:15. But before I do that, I'd like to thank you all for making the time to join us. Everybody is busy. It's a difficult time. So thanks for joining us this evening. We believe at E2E, we believe that it's through camaraderie, through collaboration, and through being collected and making a concerted effort that will drive the UK economy back to recovery. So to bring us back on track, we really encourage collaboration. We have over 200 people registered for today, many members and some of you who are also new to us. Therefore, by way of quick background, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about E2E, and then I will hand over to Richard. So in terms of E2E, we're all about connectivity. So think of us as a match.com of entrepreneurship. Hopefully you'll have seen through our events, physical events, we connect a lot of people. We have 23,000 members. The 23,000 members contribute 213 billion to the UK economy. They employ 1.15 million people. Since March, we've been very focused on how to preserve SMEs in this exceptionally challenging time. In addition to providing our virtual events, access to finance through the non-exec connectivity and the one-to-one connectivity that we do, I've been fortunate enough to have a direct line into government, into number 10, to look at the concerns our members are putting forward and try and influence government policy. So you may have heard of the Business Action Council. It's been an organisation put together to try and influence government policy. One of the things that I did as chair of the Employee Retention Scheme Recommendation Committee was introduce Flexi Furlough. So all of you who are using it, great. If you want to know more, come and talk to us. Also, hopefully you've heard of the bounce back loans. They are still around. The government is looking at extending a lot of the C-bills and bounce back loans. So we played an important part in actually getting that materialised through government. We're now submitting some further recommendations. It's going to be a difficult time as we hit October and furlough finishes. So if you'd like to know more about what we're doing, we're asking the government, particularly for sectors such as travel, entertainment, etc., to keep the furlough, but not called a furlough. We're asking for a short-time working directive where, as employers, you can, instead of making people redundant, hopefully we will have more government support. So we should hear in the next few weeks as to what the government is doing on that. But my subcommittee and I, we put through a short paper. Obviously, we're offering a lot of online events, and we're lucky enough to have Simon Woodroffe today. Last week, we had Jim McCall. Next week, we have Damian Gabiel. She ran Lloyd's of London. So hopefully, we're doing enough to keep you engaged and support you. Membership, as many of you know, is complimentary. It's roughly £12,000 of support on complimentary membership. Those that are new to us today, we will opt you in. as we launch our digital portal, which we're working on quite hard in the background, and my team is doing a great job on this, we will introduce an updated membership, which is a paid membership that will be at £25 a month, but that will give you over £24,000 of support. So one of the key things that we offer is access to IWG's offices. So Richard will talk about that, and there is a privileged offer for E2E members. We offer £10,000 worth of CRM credit, £1,000 of digital support. So have a look at our website and hopefully you'll see what we're doing. So without much further ado, hopefully I've given you a flavour of E2E. I'd like to pass over to Richard. He's going to talk about IWG and a little bit about our partnership. Richard, thank you for your support, and really delighted that you're able to join us today. So thank you, Richard. I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Shalini. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Shalini says, I'm Richard Morris. I work for a company called IWG. That stands for International Workplace Group, and we're very proud supporters of E2E. We have a long-standing relationship, and I'll talk a little bit more in a short while about the benefits that IWG offer exclusively to E2E members. Before that, I just want to say a little bit about what IWG is and what we do. Basically, we provide a very unique global platform of on-demand workspace to all different kinds of companies in 130 countries around the world, across a network of 4,000 locations. And the interesting thing about that is that it means that companies can use our network to fulfill their space requirements purely according to what they need, when they need it, and where they need it. Now, it goes without saying that the pandemic has accelerated trends that were already in existence. That would be the understatement of the century. In our case, companies were already, with digitalization, looking for different ways to consume workspace. So what we do through our network is to provide that workspace by the hour, by the week, using an app. Simply download the IWG app onto your smartphone, and you can hire space where you need it, when you need it. Pretty useful in this current strange climate that we're operating in right now. It's crazy to think that all around the world, workers, bosses, governments are all debating and trying to work out whether or not the office is obsolete. And our view is that the office isn't obsolete, but it certainly will be used very differently by companies as a result of the pandemic. And what we see businesses doing is taking advantage of becoming more agile, not tying themselves into long-term property leases, using space when they need it, where they need it. And that's where the IWG network of on-demand workspace comes perfectly into play. We have 400 locations around the UK. You're never more than 20 minutes away from one of our locations, and we can accommodate individuals working privately, meetings, team gatherings, everything. So that brings me on to what you can access as a member of E2E through the partnership with IWG. We're very pleased to be able to offer access to these locations, and we're offering 3 months free on all of our IWG products and packages for physical offices and virtual offices to E2E members. That's 3 months for free, so you can try it, see if it works for your new way of working. We also are offering free unlimited access for the next 6 months to all of our business lounges and airport lounges in the UK. And in addition to that, we're providing 10% discount to our meeting rooms across the UK, and also 10% discount on booking day offices. So pick up your smartphones, book a day office in your local IWG location. We go by different brands: Regis, Spaces, Base Point, HQ, Signature. You can find them all on the app, and we look forward to welcoming E2E members into our network. Thank you. I'm handing over to Shalini now.
Thank you, Richard. So my line disconnected for a second, so I just want to make sure that we talked about our offer. So if you aren't a member and you'd like to be a member, and if you are a member, this is the offer. Richard, did you cover it? 3 months free on all IWG. Yes, you've covered it. And free unlimited access to lounges for 6 months, 10% discounts on meeting rooms, 10% discounts on booking an office. Perfect. Yep. So we've covered that. So thank you. So it's now my huge pleasure to introduce the star of the show, Simon. Simon is the founder, the owner, and the creative driving force behind all things Yo. Simon Woodroffe, he left school at the age of 16 and spent 30 years in the entertainment business. His production companies in London and Los Angeles designed and staged concerts for many artists during the 1970s and the 80s, including the Moody Blues. Hopefully some of you have come across them, Madness, Rod Stewart, Stevie Wonder, and George Michael, no less. In the 90s, he spearheaded the development of television deals to show huge international rock concerts worldwide, including Nelson Mandela's concerts and shows for Amnesty International. In 1997, Simon founded Yo Sushi, a conveyor belt sushi bar, which hopefully many of you have experienced. The concept was to make eating a complete entertainment experience, and he featured call buttons, robots, trolleys, and like in Japanese TV. So I've enjoyed that experience a lot because I'm a huge fan of Yo, Simon, so thank you for that. The first restaurant opened in London's Poland Street, and he became an overnight phenomenon. Today, it continues to expand both at home and abroad. In 1999, Simon won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and he became part of the CBI and the British Chamber of Commerce Ambassador for Entrepreneurialism campaign, which he's still actively involved in. In 2001, he was awarded the accolade of Best Venue at the Retailer of the Year Awards. In recognition of his contribution to hospitality, Simon was awarded an OBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours in the list in 2006. Simon's further developed the Yo brands, including YOTEL, the world's most revolutionary hotel that opened in 2007, Yo Home. Simon's reinvention of City Apartments launched in London in September 2012, and now he's on Yo Zone. Part spa, part cafe, part bar, part nightclub is in development. His television appearances, which I love watching him on Dragon's Den, BBC Two's Dragon's Den, Discovery TV's VIP Weekends with Ian Wright, ITV's Home and Property, and ITV's The Millionaires Club. Simon, as you can tell, Simon is in great demand internationally as a speaker, and I'm absolutely honoured and delighted, Simon, that you've joined us this evening. So thank you very much, and I will pass over to you, Simon.
What can I say? What an introduction. But I can tell you all listening that although I can make a pretty good story out of my life, as Shalini's just done, it was more like a sort of rock and roll, very difficult ride. It wasn't as glamorous as it sounds, I must say. You know, a lot of very close to the edge an awful lot of times, and survival. I mean, I wouldn't have had it any other way, but it was. So anyway, today I feel a little bit more secure than I felt during all of that period, and I suppose it's been the making of the man. I am in my houseboat in London on the Thames. Here we are. This is the view. It's a grey day on the Thames here. And this is, let's turn around to this. This was the first houseboat, this one here actually. There you go, next door, which my daughter owns now. That was the first houseboat I built down here. And that was soon after Yo Sushi started. And up here, if we can see it, in the distance there is the office. So I don't have a long way to go to work every day. But I go to the office very often. It comes to me sometimes. So a lot of things have happened in this room There we are. And there we are. Yeah, a lot of things have happened in this room. And I opened YoSushi soon after, soon after I opened YoSushi, I came to live here. And people ask me, you know, how I started YoSushi and why I started YoSushi. And I burnt a few bridges in the television business, which is what I was in before I got into this, the rock and roll television business. And before that, I'd burnt a few bridges in the music business, you know, and I'd sort of, you know, gone through it all. And I think that probably I started, you know, what do you do when you're 45 and you can't think of anything else to do? You start a restaurant, extremely high risk. But of course, you know, I left school when I was quite young, so I never really sort of had the imagination educated out to me. I thought it was all going to work out fine, and I was very lucky that it did. And I started YoSushi in 1997, and you know, talk about stepping outside my comfort. I often think back at the 2 years it took me to develop that were 2 almost halcyon years, because I was so into it. You know, I think there's a great, if I've got any talent at all, it's complete ignorance from not being educated, and great enthusiasm when there's a new idea. You know, I love new ideas and I love getting things going. And so in 97 we opened YoSushi. I stepped out of my comfort zone. That was a word I used to use a lot at the time. You know, the idea that you're living and you're earning a living in this old world, and actually you want to go and do something different. And when you step outside our comfort zone, you know, what do you feel? You feel scared, don't you? You know, very common human emotion. And we're all taught to step quickly back inside our comfort zones. But what I found over the years is if you stay outside for a sort of reasonable period of time, you're like the pebble dropped into the lake, the ripples go out and your comfort zone gets bigger. And I think that's really been the experience in my life, that I've just stepped outside my comfort zone, driven often by the enthusiasm of ideas, because I wanted to see something happen. And that's what happened with YoSushi. And I managed to get, after 2 years of development, I was going to open it at the end of year 1, and then I got the rug pulled from underneath me. And at the end of year 2, I managed to open, didn't have all the money to pay my bills, a wing and a prayer, but we did open in Poland Street. We opened quite a large restaurant, you know, it was quite a big event, really. And no marketing money left by the time we emptied it. And so the first 2 weeks, nobody came. It was empty. I mean, I was so desperate that I even got somebody to put one of those placards up and go up the road to Oxford Street and say sushi this way. You know, the absolute kiss of death of doing something, I say to my embarrassment. But word of mouth, which in the hospitality business, in retail, word of mouth, you know, advertising is the knell, the death knell. Word of mouth, or PR if you like, is it. And we you know, people walk past the first YoSushi and they saw these conveyor belts in it. They walked past the first YoSushi and they saw these robots going round and round, which I had developed incidentally by a company from the entertainment business who used to build the rock stages when I used to do these big rock stages. And they delivered this robotic drinks trolley. If you ever tried to buy a robotic drinks trolley for a sushi restaurant, they don't sell them over the street corner, but they delivered this robotic drinks trolley. And when we opened, it drove, we watched it for the first time drive around the corner, seemingly unguided around the corner. And as it drove around the corner, it spoke, because part of my brief was that these trolleys would speak. And as this one drove around the corner, it said, "Move your fat ass." It said, somebody's got a job to do in this restaurant. And I remember seeing American tourists just, you know, looking, what this guy told to his wife, and he said, John, do you hear what it said to me? It just told me to move my fat ass. Oh, it's a robot. And I realized that if you change the landscape, and here we are in COVID in 2020, the landscape is changing. And if you change the landscape, the rules change, and you can do anything. You can imagine what my message is at this time is there are great opportunities as well as great threats. And it was also in this room that, and then I went on to sell YoSushi. Well, first of all, we got it up to 6, 7 restaurants. Robin Rowland was running it in those by that time. You know, he was a big force. He was running it for many years. and we got to selling the business. The first time I sold the business, I reduced my stake from 100% to 25%. It was an absolute moment of relief, and I sat in that lawyer's office, and all these horrible lawyers suddenly turned into very nice people, and we drank champagne. I walked a bit tipsy down Oxford Street, and they told me that in fact, when we had checkbooks, and I didn't sort of really believe it was all going to happen. So I hadn't arranged for anywhere to put the money. And so as I walked past the ATM, they'd told me the money was going straight to my bank account. As I walked past the ATM, I punched in my PIN code, and there on the screen was a sum, which was a sum. It was large enough. It was not as enormous as what came later, but it was a sum large enough to give me a great deal of comfort in this terrifying world that it can be sometimes. And I stood for so long in front of the ATM machine. There was a bloke behind me sort of coughing and spluttering, and I eventually turned to him and I said, "Excuse me, mate." I said, "Cop a look at this," And I can tell you all watching at home, if anybody ever tells you that money doesn't make you happy, they're lying. And it was also in this room that we thought up Yotel. Gerard Green and I thought up Yotel and spent many, many hours around this table here with a pencil and paper. I'm never happier myself than with a pen and paper and a blank sheet of paper and an idea and a telephone next to me. I've been known to call people up and tell them that we're developing a new idea when somebody only mentioned it a minute or two before. You know, that's a passionate enthusiasm and sort of self-belief. And at the time, I really believe it. So that's where we thought up Yotel. And Yotel has now gone on. I sold Sushi, and a second time a few years later, and I also sold Yotel about, I suppose, I can't even remember now, I suppose it's 5 or 6 years ago now. But I kept an interest in both of them. The Sushi I'm still very much involved in. We just reinvented the whole conveyor belt system so it delivers directly to your place from a phone mobile ordering thing. So we're still doing what I always call CANI, C-A-N-I ? Constant and never-ending innovation. Got to reinvent yourself in this changing world. And Yotel, we thought up here, and we opened the first one. I took Yotel, we built a prototype. I'm a big believer in, I'm a builder of real things. I'm a big believer in building prototypes. We built a prototype and took it to 100% design in Earl's Court, and people came in and go, "Wow, this is amazing. This is the home of the future." And you know, if I've done market research, do you want to sleep in a 70 square foot room or 100 square foot room for our first class product? You know, nobody would have said yes. And they walked into that small room, and where the windows faced onto the corridor, no natural light, and they walked in and they said what I call the magic words, which are, "This is so obvious. Why didn't somebody do this before?" And you know, that I think is what people like us, and I say it to the wider sense of the word, because I guess us is who's watching tonight. You know, people who are entrepreneurs who want to go out and do things. You know, in this changing and difficult world, we are in a fantastic space. You know, brings to mind a poem, I just thought of it, by Felix Dennis. It goes like this: "Ideas, we've had them since Eve first met Adam, but take it from me, execution's the key. Good fortune, the truth is, the harder you work, the more that you sweat, the luckier you get. The money, go find a likely investor to get what you need, you toadies to greed. The talent, go find it, but first wine and dine it. It's tedious work with a talented jerk. To win it, you've got to be in it, but never be late to quit and cut bait. Expansion is vanity, profit is sanity. Overhead begs and it walks on 2 legs. The first step, just do it and bluff your way through it. Remember to duck. Godspeed and good luck." And I always think that that's kind of says it all. Business is not that complicated. And that's what I say to young people, you know, probably safer to go in and do that than climb the greasy ladder of corporate life. And thank God we ended up here, you know. So in this room, we developed Yotel. And I sold that, and I sold both businesses. When I sold them, I'd been in the music business, so I knew about royalties, and I sold them with a royalty. So I get a 1% royalty from Sushi, and I get a royalty from YOTEL. And so, you know, I'm still involved. I never have to write a book like Richard Branson called How I Lost My Virginity, or How I Lost My Yo in my case, because I never lost it. So, you know, people said that's a clever deal. But you know something, I didn't plan it as a clever deal. I kind of did it as a way of appeasing a very small investor I had. And I just said, look, I'll just take a royalty off it, you know, and so as it goes up, I'll earn a bit more. And so, yeah, that's a good idea. And the royalty stayed in place through a lot of different 5, 6 VC transactions along the way. So now that's sort of embedded into the DNA of Yo. And YoHo, which mistakenly people think is up and running all over the world, and we're still at the prototype stage. 7 years later, I'm a slow coach, I'm afraid. I want, when we go to market, I want something to be so wow that everybody knows about it instantly. And I probably should have got it done a bit quicker, but I think it'll happen in time. But in the meantime, you know, I built these 3 houseboats here in London. And by building them, one of them they're all built from scratch, absolutely, with not built on old barges, all built from scratch, designed on a piece of paper in this room. And one of them I built in concrete, cast concrete. And it got me thinking, and I've had this idea kicking around for a long time. I always talk about my ideas. You know, people say, don't talk about your ideas, somebody will steal them. My experience is people don't steal ideas because they think their own ones are better. But actually, if you talk about ideas, it makes them happen and gets you to make it happen. It drives it forward. And anyway, I built this concrete houseboat, and I thought, what happens if I could build a much larger concrete platform and put earth on it and make it look like an island and build floating islands? Because one of my things about Yo is that as a brand, you know, it's innovative, obviously, a bit cheeky like a lot of the brands, but you know, I hope that people will say you've got to see what they're doing next, because it's innovative, it's different. And it also gives to everybody what rich people have. And since rich people have private islands, I thought if I built floating private islands, I could put them into shallow water around the world and create real estate where there was no real estate, a bit like the baddie in Superman when he blew up the San Andreas Fault. And I went on holiday. I'm a sailor, and I took my sailing boat. We went into the Bahamas, and I thought this Bahamas is a perfect place to do it. So I asked the agent if they'd get me a license to do these floating islands. He said, I think you should buy an island as a stepping stone to doing that. Well, that's what happened. I bought an island by mistake. I actually offered the guy, said, I don't want an island, I don't want an island like that. So I'll give you half the asking price. And a week later, they came back and said yes. So I'm now developing Yotopia in the Bahamas. So I hope one day I'll make a movie and it'll say, you've eaten at Yo Sushi, you stayed in YOTEL, you live in Yo Home, now come and visit us on Yotopia. That's me.
Simon, that I had no idea about Yotopia. You've just blown me away. You make it sound so easy, but you're right. The poem from Felix Dennis, I think it was I've never heard that one before. So I'm glad we're recording this, because I'm going to listen to it over and over again. It's been really, really insightful to have you speak. And I think I hope everyone's going to agree with me. I can't see them, unfortunately, but you are always inspirational. And I love what you said about creative ideas, because I think it is true. We're sometimes, as entrepreneurs, we're very cautious about talking about our ideas to people, being worried about trust, but actually the more you speak about your ideas, the more they happen. So I've had the pleasure of sitting in your beautiful boat with you and discussing a few ideas, and you've gone from those ideas to a lot more. So thank you, Simon. So I know there's questions. There's people who've got their hands raised on the chat function. So I'm going to ask, if I may, first of all, John McGlynn. Now, before I ask John McGlynn to speak, I'm going to say a huge thank you to him, because when I came up with this idea of E2E, it was John that actually helped to start the company along with Daryl. And John registered our first name, which was the London Entrepreneurial Exchange. He's speaking for us on the 7th of October. So John, it's great to have you on the call. Thank you very much for for joining us. John's got an amazing story, so I hope you'll wait till the 7th of October to see how he's become from nothing to a self-made billionaire himself. So John, over to you.
Hi, I hope you can all hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Simon, good to see you again, old chap. I was out with our mutual buddy, Mr. Bannatyne, last week, who said I have to pass on his very best wishes. The question that both of us have, and it was fascinating chat tonight, but the question that both Duncan and I have for you is, when can we come and see this island? That's the only key point for this evening. When can we come to Utopia and see it and touch it and see what you're doing with it? Because every entrepreneur, I think, wants to buy an island, and other than Branson, you've beat us to it, so I'm immensely jealous, but congratulations.
Well, you're very welcome to come. There's not much on it yet, but it's on its way. But I know that Duncan's got a house now in Miami, so I'm sure that he'll come. Duncan used to come over here. In fact, while we were doing Dragon's Den, Duncan used to come. I mean, famously, when we did Dragon's Den, I did the first series, so we really had no idea how it was going to turn out or how the public were going to receive it. But it went down a storm right from the outset. And I remember Duncan calling me up and saying, "Oh, Simon," he said. I said, "What do you reckon? What do you reckon?" He said, "Everybody knows about it." He said, "They recognise me on the street." He said, "I fucking love it." And then he came around here a couple of years later, and he'd had his hair done, and it's a bit of all that. And, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "You look 10 years younger. You're looking great, Duncan." He said, "I know." He said, "But he said, I'm worried that nobody's going to recognise me now." I think he had a wry smile, mind you.
He loves it. Tell me what, another quick question for you. Did you ever make money on that truffle deal? I meant to ask you the last time I bumped into you in Heathrow.
I claim that I made more money in the first 3 or 4 series of Dragon's Den than anybody else did. And do you know how much I made, John?
No.
0. Right, that was more than anybody else made. And no, the truffle, that was one of the investments I supposedly made, and it didn't actually happen because he hadn't invented truffles to be grown in a greenhouse. But I didn't really mind. I wanted to do it anyway. I was going to have truffle hunting trouser merchandise. I was going to buy a property and make it tax deductible in France to go and find these truffles. But it didn't work out in the end, that one, like a lot of those ones.
John, thank you very much. It's great to hear you. And and say hi to Duncan from me as well. He was part of our founding board. He's still actively involved in E2E. So thanks, John. And we're looking forward to the 7th of October.
Not as much as I'm looking forward to my visit to Utopia.
I'm sure a lot of us will be there with you.
It's a nice island. And I'll tell you something else, since we're all little show-offs occasionally. It's 100 acres. And Richard Branson's Necker Island is 70.
Wait. Well done. And when do you think it's going to be ready, Simon? When can
I always tell people, because everybody asks that question all the time to me, especially because I took ages to do things. But I always say, and everybody's got they think, and I always just say when it's ready. I'm 68 and I really enjoy doing projects, and certainly this Utopia, we bought a house on Nassau, so we've developed that first, and I've just taken delivery of a landing craft, like a Second World War aluminium landing craft, modern thing, with 200-300 horsepower. It goes 50 miles an hour, and then we can carry a digger on it, and so it's fun. So it'll be ready when it's ready. We'll take our time. It'll be ready when it's ready.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, thank you so much, Simon. I'm going to move over now to Daniel Shaw. Daniel, you have your hand up. Can you hear
us? Yes, I can.
Will you introduce yourself, Daniel?
Sure, absolutely. I am Daniel, a founder of Golfscape. We are basically Expedia for golf, but then on the other side, the SaaS component where the golf course operates their operations, and we charge a monthly fee. Now, obviously, everything that Simon has just said, I was nodding along with, because I think that it's really important to think about it in a simple way, business is not that hard because the world is so, there are so many flaws that are obvious. And when you spot them, it's not that difficult to say, okay, here's how we can make it better. So my background is over the last 4.5 years, I'm an American refugee, believe it or not, because of the situation now that we're banned from the EU. But and my visa expired in Dubai. My house is in Dubai. I've seen Yo and everywhere, there and all the big malls there. I personally have spent 330 days a year on the road, living in places like Bali and Bangkok and Cape Town and Marbella and London. And
Daniel, what's your question?
Okay, so my question is for Simon, is that are the failures and the toughest times, not been the stimulator for you to create what you've created on a basic level, and then easing your way up into the where you are now, basically?
Well, a lot of people talk about failure. I'm not the first one, but when I was a kid growing up, I thought that people who went out and did things like I've done, entrepreneurs, I thought they were a different sort of person. I mean, I really did think they were a different sort of person. I didn't think ordinary people did stuff like that. And, it took, I left school with 2 O-levels. And so I hadn't got anything to fall back on. And, so I had businesses from a very young age, small businesses, first of all, kind of working alongside people and then my own. And they never really made any money. I made a living out of them. And I always thought I was a bit of an amateur businessman. In fact, I still do think, I tell people I'm an amateur. I say, you're serious. You've got all the spreadsheets and you do all of that. So I'm the amateur with the idea and the enthusiasm. And I think that's quite a nice role to play. Different people have different roles in life.
Absolutely. I think that
failure is failure. Just to finish it, that thought process, because I was forgetting what you'd asked me actually, because I was going off onto one. But failure, you just have to dust yourself off and get up and try again. And again, going at Dragon's Den, when I was on Dragon's Den, if somebody had come in and they had a couple of failures, I thought they were extremely investable, especially if they were well into their 40s, because there's a call to action to make things happen. You don't have to leave overconfidence. So if you failed, it's definitely just keep going.
And also, it's times like these that stimulate the innovation, right? Because they have to. As you said, change is hard. People aren't willing to do it unless they're in some way incentivized or they're forced to. And in this case, it's the people that survive that are going to become the next Apples, right? The people that go away, die, are the ones that you won't hear about in 20 years. So I actually personally am with you. I was a late bloomer in terms of my experience, but having a cultural understanding of all of these different places, when I would go and travel and camp out and live there like a local, get an Airbnb and rent a car, it really gave me a lot of not just growth as a human, but as a professional, because you understand empathy and compassion in a way that is not possible without having that experience.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I appreciate your question. I'm going to move over to Eunice. Eunice, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Shalini. Thank you for arranging this. I'm well, thank you. Richard has been sitting very quiet, so I've got a question for Richard as well. Simon, nice to see you here. Big fan of your sushi as well as Dragon's Den. Before I start, one complaint towards your sushi, the one you got in Glasgow is always out of soft shell crab. So could you ask somebody to please make sure they've always got enough stock of that, because I really enjoy that with a cold acai beer when I'm there. Thank you. Richard, a question to you is based upon, you were talking about lounges at the airport and so on. not that we are traveling that much at the moment, but is that offer also available outside UK, or is it for UK only? And sorry, I'll ask Simon the question as well, then I'll stay quiet after that. Simon, the question to you is relating to, you mentioned you still have interest in Yo Sushi and other Yo brand projects. Shalini knows that we are launching the world's best loyalty program at the moment. And I would love to speak to somebody in your businesses who deals with that aspect. We are doing a completely revolutionary loyalty program, which is based upon AI and blockchain. And we have struck a deal with Avios, as well as currently talking to Emirates and Tesco. So Simon, the most serious point in all this is the soft shell crab, because they're really close to my heart. So if you can deal with that, I'll really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eunice. Thank you. I'm going to move over to Sarah Chiji, and she's hopefully you all know her, but without her, I couldn't really run E2E. So Sarah, would you like to ask a question? Are you live, Sarah? Just need to unmute. No? So Simon, I'm going to ask her question for you. She has the question of what keeps you awake at night? That's if you stay awake at night. What keeps you awake?
Listen, I'm extremely familiar with sleepless nights. That said, I haven't had one for a long time. So I've come somewhere in my life. You know, I mean, the mind and the psyche can make up an enormous number of things to get terrified about in your life, especially financial ones.
Yeah.
And I've always been a worrier. And, you know, being a worrier is a very, very good thing to be, because if you can keep it in hand and not let it get out of handle, you know, what you're doing is anticipating the problems that will come along and working out how to do them. And when I have a sleepless night, it's usually because I wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which is great for me. I'm an early bedite, and I get up and go do something about it. But usually they're to do with business or money things. Occasionally they've been romantic or something like that, but mostly they're to do with money things like that. I do think that one of the mantras that I have in my life today is, well, there's 2 things that I've always had these mantras that go through my head. And the one that I got at the moment is never take anything personally, ever. Pretty radical thing. Never take anything personally, ever. And you know, that can really change things around. And the second one is everything always works out. Always. You know, you can say it's there for a meaning or for a reason, but it does. It always works out, always. It may take some time, and it may be a rocky road along the way, but it always works out. And, you know, the further you get on, if you're a pretty good person and you don't try and be too greedy or too cunning or too clever, you speak well, you know, read Rudyard Kipling's If, speak well about others, don't gossip too much, you know, try to avoid lawyers, you know, have really good tight contracts, but be decent to people. When I negotiate contracts, I try to give people everything they want. Everything they want. And ultimately, if instead of trying to get everything I want, and ultimately, if they don't come and do the reciprocal, they're not people I want to do business with, so I don't do the deal. You know, I mean, I'm making it sound simple, but reducing stress in your life, and there's all sorts of ways to do that. Reducing stress in your life means that you will make much, much better decisions, see things much more clearly. And, you know, I've got now with Utopia, which we're doing in I've got some people working out in the Bahamas, they're part of my small team. I always tell them, well, I tell them a couple of things. I tell them, one is we're not that good. we're not that clever, but other people are, some people aren't very clever at all. So, and also we only want to work with nice people. We only want to work with people we can trust. You know, however tight your contract is, especially in building works, you only want to work with nice people. And it really does work there. It's taken me a long, long time to find out, because I probably wasn't the nicest one of them all at certain points in my life. It's taken me a long time, but it really works. De-stress. You live longer. You sleep well. You live longer.
Absolutely. I think Sarah may be unmuted now. Sarah, are you there? Sarah? No. Okay. So I was hoping she would comment, but I'm going to ask a question which I think she might ask you. How do you not take it personally, Simon?
Well, no, you just become aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if somebody's, you know, dissing you, not interested, you know, all those things that kind of get to you, and you have that outrageous feeling, you know, that outrage. How dare they talk to me like this? How, you know, blah, blah, blah. Usually, often, it's nothing to do with you. It's for another completely different reason. It's always their problem, not yours, as long as you keep your side of the street clean. And, you know, if you hold, you know, holding on to resentments is, you know, people make an art of it. Holding on to resentments is a killer. It gives you so much stress. And it's a bit corny, but somebody said to me once, he said, the thing about resentments is that it's a bit like a poison that you take, hoping the other person will die. It doesn't work at all. So I think you can just be aware that you don't take anything personally. And if you say that line to yourself when somebody says something, you can move on. And it's a very, very liberating feeling to go through life without sort of any niggles from people. Oh, they're just going through doing what they're doing, and you know, that's their problem, not mine. Good thing to practice. Look, all of these things are things that you practice. Practice in the sense that you practice, you know, you're going to make mistakes all the time, but along with practicing, you know, whatever your job is, you're doing your numeracy or your counts or whatever it is that you do, practice, you know, those human skills as well. You get better at them, and you find that things work. People like doing business with people that they like. You know? So you can become somebody who's likable, not by being terribly smarmy or charming or anything, but simply by being somebody who is trustable.
Absolutely. Her final question, I think the mute button's not working, the unmute for her, is Sarah's asked, the final question is, has someone inspired you? And if so, who inspired you? Oh
God, I always get asked that question. I should sort of have a list of names of just great people. And I ain't. You know, I mean, there's lots of people along the way who, you know, I've got bits and pieces from. I've never been very good at being inspired by other people. I'm inspired by myself, truthfully.
Sure.
And I don't really listen to lots of pundits. I don't listen to hundreds of entrepreneurial things. I'm sort of out of my own. I always think, you know, I always think that I know better than everybody else. Fortunately, I also know that that's a complete delusion. So, but in terms of sort of creative ideas, I don't listen too much to other people. I mean, the one that I am, because I came, you know, look, I used to be in the 60s, end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. You know, I had hair that, I've grown my hair now, but I had hair down to here. I used to really mean them, do a bit of all of that. And, you know, the guy who was doing it was Richard Branson, you know, and he is the first guy who had long hair, who was a businessman and was a bit rebellious. And I was very inspired by him because I thought, well, you know, if he could do it, I wouldn't mind being in that mold. So I suppose I have been influenced by him. And I think a lot of people have actually in that respect. You know, he had that sort of boldness, you know.
Right.
But no, I never really had mentors either. I think it's a bloody good idea to get a mentor. I don't know if anybody could put up with me.
I'm sure a lot of us would, Simon. Thank you. That was very honest. I'm going to move over, if I may, to Robert Hartley. He has a question. Sarah, hopefully that's answered your questions. And then we have a lot of great friends on the call. We've got Clive Goodman, we've got Olivia Adam, we've got Elio, we've got Hakan Kandanar, Ian Appleton. So I'm encouraging you all to not to be shy and raise your hand with a question. But we'll move over for next. If you wouldn't mind to make it live, please, for Robert. Stephen.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Simon. Thank you for that. Great talk, great insights. I just have one question. When you mentioned Yo Sushi, the first 2 weeks there was no one coming in, and I just wanted to know, was there anything particularly that was the turning point for Yo Sushi that started that path to success?
You know, I've been a designer of rock shows. So I bought rock and roll and show business to restaurants. I suppose that's what I was trying to do. And in that first restaurant in Poland Street, I just did it instinctively. I got the graphics people to completely cover up the windows while we were building it. And it just had random words on it. It said, Yo, robot, Kirin, conveyor. And it was in the middle of Soho, and people must have walked past and thought, what the hell is going on in there? If you see something that's bright orange, you've got all these weird words, what's going on in there? And the day we took that sign down, we'd never done any marketing, and we took the sign down, and you looked in through the window, and there was a conveyor belt going round with chefs standing there doing all of this business, and robots driving round, and we had a lot of people just standing outside looking through the window, because you would. And I think people were really scared to go in. They didn't even know it was a restaurant. And I think that a few people ventured in to have a go, and word of mouth got out. And word of mouth is the greatest thing of all. And we had, as I say, that second Saturday, I remember somebody coming down and saying, you've got to have a look. We had an office downstairs. They said, you've got to have a look at this. And I came upstairs, there was a queue down the block. And you know, suddenly the press got hold of it, you know, and it's much stronger that way when word of mouth goes out and people want to do it and they want to come do it. And of course, when I started talking about it to the press, I never said the food's great. I never said the atmosphere's great. I never sort of promoted any of that, because it seemed to me that's so obvious. Everybody's going to say that, so nobody's going to believe you. So I used to talk about the world and life and everything and rock and roll and things I'd done and stuff I'd learned, like I'm talking to you now. And people were much more interested. It made for much better press, and we got lots and lots of good stuff from it, you know, because they just thought it was interesting. And so word of mouth just got out. And then one day I was sitting in my little office downstairs at my Apple computer, and the phone went, and this American voice said, this is Biden and Kennedy out of Portland, Oregon. We're the advertising agency for Nike and ESPN and for Microsoft, our client. And they've identified you as a cutting edge new brand. And they want to make a TV commercial about you and 5 other people around the world. We have a $39 million airtime budget to put your brand out around the world. Would you be interested? And I said, which I'm sure you would probably have said, I said, right, who's winding me up here? And of course it really was them. And they came and made a TV commercial that went out all over the world. And suddenly we'd sowed the seeds. Why? Because I'd been a great marketing man. No, I'd thrown away the marketing budget. You know, I really hadn't done anything in marketing at all. I'd spent all my money doing something really, really different, so that when the doors opened, people came in and said, you've got to see this. You know, I still think you've got to hold a red flag up and say, look at us, but don't, you know, in startups, which is a thing I've done, do something that is amazing. You know, in any business, in the restaurant business, the food's got to be great, 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 great. The service got to be great, 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 great. But there's got to be some. When I was in the theatre, when I first started off before rock and roll, everybody, they used to have this really sort of annoying word. They used to go, there's a ziz in showbiz. And I always said, there's a ziz in every business in the world, but you've got to find that ziz. I mean, That's my particular way. Other people have different ways of doing it, but I want to have this, if I do something, which is why it's taken so long with YoHome, if I do something, I want everybody in the world to know about it. You know, not just to be sort of famous in your own lunchtime, to be famous everywhere in the world. So you've got to do something that's really spectacular and different, not for its own sake. And you know, I think most people, as they go through this world, they want to know what the future's like. It's probably the most interesting subject there is. You know, where are we at in the development of the world? You know, I mean, I'm fascinated. You know, we've done the exploration of the world. I'm a climber. Every mountain's been climbed. Every square inch has been developed. Now we're into the beginning of the exploration of space, and it seems to me that you know, it's the very beginning. My favorite headline of the future: Tesco bankrupt after cost of teleportation falls below ₹1. You know, I mean, it's, you say that's crazy, but it's no crazier than telling Captain Cook 300 years ago about the world we live in with all of this going on here, there, and everywhere. You know, that we're going to see stuff even in our lifetime, certainly in our kids' lifetime, where it is beyond us being able to conceive it. Stephen Fry, that question people ask you, they go, what time would you have liked to have lived in the history of Earth? Stephen Fry said, don't be ridiculous. It's obvious. It's now. And you happen to have won the lottery because we're all here now. For all the problems that we think we have, we're at the most interesting time in history that's ever happened. Forget all the micro stuff about, you know, is the government doing this, that, or the other? And I could really go into something about that because, you know, we are never going to be, you know, we the people deserve what we get, frankly. I don't criticize any government. It's very, very difficult doing what they're doing. We got often not terribly good politicians because we kick the hell out of them, encouraged by the press. Can you imagine when you're bringing up children? If you bring children up, you bring them up and you encourage them. You try and catch them doing things right. You do good things for them. The press try and catch everybody doing wrong things. So we have just bad news. So what they've done, the press, is created a world of people who are terrified of life. And it doesn't have to be terrifying. There's enough to go around. So, you know, we're rocking through the planet. Everything's okay just as it stands. But, you know, we need to let go and just say we don't know sometimes and say thank you to people who are trying to lead us, because they're not all vicious, egotistical, conspiracy theories people. They're trying to do a good job, same as you and me. And we, even us, all of us, we've got our dark side as well. You know, we've got some ego and this, that, and the other, but we're basically trying to do some good stuff. Anyway, that's a bit of a rant. That's what I think.
Absolutely right. Absolutely spot on, Simon. Thank you very much for that. And Robert, does that answer your questions? Can I move on to John Tyler?
You certainly can. Thank you. That's a great answer, and it went off on a really good tangent. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Nice to have you on. And I'm going to ask John Tyler. I think, John, can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you speak?
Hi.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, Shalini. Love to see you. Love to see everybody.
Nice to see you.
Simon, thanks for that. I love Yo Sushi, but I confess I haven't been to one since March when I was in, I think it was Waterloo. Can you describe the journey since lockdown, how the company has fared and the lessons it learned?
Yo Sushi. Well, look, I don't, you know, I'm not in the heart of Yo Sushi. What happened with Yo Sushi is that, like everybody else, you know, it was what the hell is going to happen, and we did the furlough and all of that. And, you know, to their credit, Richard Hodgson, who runs the business, I had been on at Richard for the last 3 years that we have to reinvent Yo Sushi. It needs a shot in the arm to come back and be the hottest thing in the world again. And there's a lot of new technology out there that we could do it with. And he had a million things on. What COVID did is make it happen, because I'd said we should no longer have conveyor belts that just run around. We should be able to order on your mobile phone, which you can do today in Yo Sushi, and the food will get delivered to you. I thought we were going to refit all of them with super magnetic levitation, this, that, and the other. What we actually ended up doing was speeding the conveyor belt up by 3 times the normal speed. so that it could deliver to people. And we have some very, very innovative and interesting things upcoming in the future that you will see in YoSushi and see in future YoSushis as we expand. And so that is going to be a big, big shot in the arm. That's something that's coming. In the meantime, we did a company voluntary arrangement, which Richard handled incredibly well and very, very sensitively with landlords, not cynically at all. And we reduced our estate in the UK by about 20% of restaurants that weren't working. So that's been, you have to say that's been a very good thing. And we lost some people, but we managed to retain the most of them. And we've got through the chicane, and we're a business that's going to survive. And I hope with this new innovation coming is going to thrive. And we are one of the lucky ones. There's going to be less competition out there, is the truth. There's going to be better access to more sites through other people failing. And, through the other people failing, that's not a cynical thing. I mean, I never met the person who went out to do what they dreamed of doing and regretted it, regardless of whether they succeeded or failed, regardless of whether their restaurant business succeeded or failed. Because, you lose out in business. If you can dust yourself off, you can come back and do it again. It clears the air. So business failure, when I was growing up, was just looked on as the most shameful thing. Today, it's not shameful. If you haven't had a business failure or two, you've not been there. And people will reinvent themselves. Always can reinvent yourself. As another of my sayings is that you can always reinvent yourself, but more so, there's always a solution to everything. There is always a solution to everything. You may not see it straight away. You may have to go around stone walls. You come up against a showstopper, a stone wall. You go around it, ignore it, pretend it's not there, carry on. Build golden bridges that connect with other people. There's always a solution to everything. And there's certainly, what this has thrown up. Or as somebody said earlier, I think as Richard said it, is that what's actually happening is that things that were going to happen anyway. Richard was talking about offices, but in lots of different areas, things that were going to happen anyway are going to happen now. I'm a believer actually in the universal wage. I think that eventually there will be a universal wage for everybody, and that will be enough to survive on, so that you don't have this poverty trap of being on the dole. So that's to be enough to survive on. And if you want to just be an artist and live a very simple life, you can in this very complicated world we've invented for everybody. And if you want to go out and earn on top of that, you can as well. So I think that will happen. I think robotics are going to be the new software, if you like. There are lots going to take over that. People are going to complain like Luddites, they're taking our jobs away, but actually it will give a lot of freedom. I think the happiness of not having to commute for some people, for a lot of people, that could bring a lot of happiness to a lot of people. You don't want to put people through that fear and terror. Don't know, but it's an exciting world, and there's good stuff to come. But you've got to bring your children up to believe that it's a good world and it's all going to work out. And it's not just about getting those qualifications. I'll tell you, I don't need children to have qualifications. I mean, hopefully brain surgeons will. I need children to grow up with a belief in life and without too much fear, and a belief that it's all going to be great, and to be good at human relations. That's the best thing we can teach in school: how to deal with fear, anger, jealousy, whatever it is, so that we can all have good human relations, because there's enough to go around for all of us. It's just that we get in the way. The business is easy, it's people that's difficult, isn't it?
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Shalini.
No, pleasure. Thanks, John. Thanks for your question. We're going to go over to Clive Goodman in a minute, followed by Elio, but I'm just going to take a tiny break to do a small poll. There's 4 questions on there, so I'm going to ask if the poll could be brought up live, and then there's a few people more, Simon, if you wouldn't mind, who are asking some questions, so I'll go across to them. So just take Simon, you're not able to vote on this one, I'm afraid, neither am I, but everyone else who's participating, please do take a second to answer the questions. You can kind of tick more than one box if you want to. So I'm interested in E2E because the events are very informative and educational. I make valuable, high quality connections. I make use of the membership benefits, none of the above. Second question, which of the below services would you need the most? Business services, e.g. access to our legal partners, accountants, etc. Receiving flexi mentoring, finding a non-exec director, meeting like-minded people, fundraising, offering your services to our members, or none of the above. And which of the following services would benefit you? Real-time private market data, sales intelligence software, digital marketing support, web hosting and web development support, customer relationship management software, or none of the above. And finally, would you benefit from discounted access to physical or virtual office packages, meeting rooms, and business lounge access in the UK? That one is a yes or no. So I'm just going to leave it for a second, and then I'm going to ask if Clive Goodman, whether you'd be raise your hand, and I think Stephen, our CTO, will unmute you. And I'll follow that, if I may, with Elio. Let's just give it a second, and I think we can move now. We'll share the results of the poll at the end in literally 5-10 minutes. So, Clive, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks, Clive. How are you doing?
Yes, fine. Trying to paint a smile on things as always, but we're obviously suffering bad times at the moment, Simon. I've been in business for a long time, 20 odd years, but never known it this tough. What I'm curious about was your journey from being a single branch up to the network of branches that you had, and how you financed that, because we've sort of had to retreat back to a single branch ourselves now. We're looking for the best way of funding our growth to hopefully return to where we were.
What's your business, Clive?
I run an advertising agency, so we do media buying. It's much more digital these days than old school shouting down the phone and doing deals, but it's still very much a traditional full service agency.
And how do you want to expand?
Well, I'd really like to get into more places. I think we've done well at offering a relatively local service to SME type businesses. What I'd like to do is go back to having more than one office, and hopefully move back towards looking at a continental expansion again. All the things that we had on the cards before the 2008 recession took the wind out of our sails at that point. So we're back to one office now, but we're looking to push out and try to make more contacts.
So what would you do if I could sort of guarantee, if I was God and I could guarantee that whatever you did would be successful?
Very good question. Thank you for putting me on the spot. It's I think for me the main key to success is getting the right people. Yeah, certainly funding the process isn't necessarily a major problem. We've got money in the bank, but we haven't got huge amounts. So the thought of setting up an office of 10 people with premises and hiring people at the right sort of caliber, say in somewhere like Newcastle or Manchester or somewhere like that, is a bit daunting. But I think that's probably the way we would want to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You have to kind of go through these things, and you probably know the answers to all of these certainly better than I do. I do think we're moving into a world where to sit at the top of the tree and, unless you're very well funded, sit at the top of the tree and hire this person and that person to build a business. I think a series of reciprocal businesses can be very, very strong to do that without sort of putting yourself too much cash rich. I mean, we expanded, I got the restaurant chain up to 4, and then, we got in the grown-ups, if you like. And we were lucky, we did it out of cash flow. You talk about opening another office, the obvious thing that comes to mind is, why do you need an office?
Yeah, good point.
You'd have thought in this day and age that there must be an awful lot of people in the advertising business who'd be out of work following all of this stuff. I mean, I think the first thing is to write a fantasy business plan. I mean, I could say a fancy business plan because the front of my business plan, my first business plan, it said, if you want to make God laugh, show him your business plan. But I still wrote it. And, you know, I think that question, what would you do if you really knew that it would succeed? And I think that you've got, as a leader, Clive, you said the sentence, oh, just go out and meet some new people. I think that until you have that enthusiasm and that vision of what it is that you really want to do before you die, you know, that is what people buy. If you want to get people to come in, maybe start on low wages, start as partners, whatever it is, they've got to believe in you. And in order for them to believe in you, you've got to believe in yourself. So I think what I have always done with these things is to get into them, to develop what is going to be, what is innovative, what is going to be different, how it's going to be done, not as a way of selling it to people, but something that you truly believe in. Because when you really believe in something, you don't have to sell it, you just talk about it. And then people write business plans and I say to them, well, have you finished it? And they go, oh no, we're not going to show anybody until we finish the business plan. And I say, you know, you've got to go out and talk to people. You've got to have the business plan. It's got to be in your head. And then you've got to talk to people with enthusiasm so that people believe you. Like you're believing me now. You know, when you can do that,
yeah,
you know, people will come with you. But never be late to quit and cut bait. If you haven't got the thing that you want to do, maybe you're better off staying small, you know. But if you have got the wherewithal to do that, because I can hear underneath that tenuous voice a kind of vision that, you know, you want to be out there because you could do things better than other people could. But you've really got to believe that you can do it better. And if you really, really believe that, then there will always be somebody who will come and work with you, who will fund you, this, that, and the other. But spend your money and your time on the product and make it absolutely knockout amazing. And then things will happen from there.
Great answer, thank you.
Thanks, Clive, for your questions. Simon, thank you for a very, very comprehensive response. We've got literally about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to go over to Ilio, and if we have time, Ward as well. Ilio, hi, how are you? Are you live? Are you live? No? Okay, shall we move over to Ward in that case, and then we might come back to Ilio. Ward, can you hear us? No? Okay, I think we're having a few difficulties on connecting. So let me ask you Ward's question quickly, Simon. So her question is, why the restaurant and hospitality sector, when you said earlier that you knew in advance it was an unreliable market to break into and you had to struggle to get into it, so why did you choose that sector? That's her question. Well,
Ward, thanks for the question. I was almost always a big advocate of notebooks, and I had a notebook and I was going to do all sorts of different things. I was going to do, one of my pages was to make indoor rock climbing popular, because I was a climber, mountaineer, and I wanted to do climbing for everybody, and I had lots of ideas there. And I had 4 or 5 different things on the go, and one was not to do a restaurant, but to do Japanese food. And they were all things that I just liked. You know, I like rock climbing. I liked Japanese food because I lived in Los Angeles, and I went out to lunch with a guy I knew from the television business. I used to go around asking people their advice about what I could do. And I asked this guy, he took me to a sushi restaurant very kindly because I couldn't afford it, and in Bartley Square. And I said, what about sushi? You know, it's sort of taking up in Los Angeles. It's not happened over here really at all. And he said in this Japanesey sort of way, there was just a long Japanesey silence. And then he said, what you should do, Simon, is a conveyor belt sushi bar with girls in black PVC miniskirts, by which he meant it was a kind of stylish. Because in Japan, the conveyor belt sushi bars, and there were 2,500 of them when I started, they've been going since the 60s, but they're sort of like happy eaters on the side of the A1, you know. to low-cost joints, and I just took the same idea. So I was into the idea. You know, I'm an ideas guy. I walk around and see the world. You know, just like I was talking to Clive about. That's how I see the world. You know, anybody who says something like, "I got a business problem I want to solve," or a creative problem, or any of that, you know, I'm straight in there with what I would do if I was in that situation. Well, not quite, because it's much easier for me to say it because I don't have to put out the day-to-day fires that Clive has to put out, and a lot of people listening today have to do in terms of running their own business. But certainly, I love a business problem like that, or a creative problem, or any of those things. But it usually comes down to the same thing. There's always a solution to everything, and you've got to make a plan and get excited about it, and put the customer first. Customer, you know, above everything. The only person who comes before the customer is the people who work for you. Because if the people who work for you love you and love what they do, they're going to look after the customers.
Thank you, Simon. That's absolutely very helpful. I'm going to ask, it's exactly time to finish, so we're just going to share the results of the poll. I wish we had another half an hour with you, Simon, because there's so many questions we want to be asking you, but we're going to have to end it with the results of the poll. So the results of the poll are that I'm interested in E2E because the events are informative and educational. That wins prime position there. On the second question, it's about meeting like-minded people that people are interested in our business score. Number 3 is which services would you benefit from? Digital marketing takes, I guess, the equal score to none of the above. So where everybody has put none of the above, please write in and tell us what would be useful. And 36% of our audience say they would find discounted access to IWG's offices and serviced office packages and flexible packages very helpful. So Richard, there's a response on that one. I'm conscious of time. Simon, if we had another half an hour, we would keep going, but I know that people will want to have dinner. It's been hugely informative, hugely insightful. I said that I was excited to hear you, and I always continue to be excited to hear you. I've learned so many things. I'm hoping that one day I can join you on Yotopia, and I'm wishing you every success, and we hope that we can help you on that journey. And it's lovely to have you, so thank you very much. And massive thank you also to Richard Morris and for the support of IWG. Richard, thank you. So it's been brilliant to have everyone. Next week we have with Damian Gabiel. She founded, she was CEO for a long time of Lloyd's of London. She's now doing a multiple career in terms of non-execs. She's a formidable woman because I sit on the Mayor of London's Business Advisory Board with her. So I have had the opportunity for the last 3 years to work with her. She is very, very exciting. That's again with IWG next Wednesday. So if you haven't registered, please do register and then have a look. There are some great lineups of speakers, but continue to chat to us about your issues. Hopefully we will continue to help. So everyone have a nice evening, and thank you again, Simon. Thank you, and Richard. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.